Hi, everyone. This is John Daly here with the 100th episode of the No BS Zone with Bernie Goldberg. Believe it or not, we've been doing this podcast for almost 4 years. We started back in April of 2022. Bernie, how are you doing? Are you excited about the 100th episode?
My excitement is off the charts. I mean, I'm trying to control myself.
Excellent. Well, you're doing it. You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. So, but as people know who are premium members of bernardgoldberg.com, to celebrate this anniversary, we asked our premium subscribers to send their questions for you. We haven't done a Q&A in a while, at least with you. So we figured we'd bring it back today. Now, I should mention, Bernie, that you did not see these questions ahead of time. We were careful about that.
That is correct. That is correct.
Yeah, so your answers are going to be sort of on the fly. That can make things even more interesting, I think. So
interesting is a euphemism for off the rails, but okay, go ahead.
Yes, or comical. Comical might be a better word, but I was surprised. We actually got quite a few questions for this one. So and none of them are too crazy. So that was that was good. But I'll go ahead and start. Are you ready, Bernie?
No.
No, all right, but I'm going to start anyway. So our first one is from a fellow named Eric S. I'm going to save all their last names. I'll just do the abbreviation. So this is Eric's question. You used to lean left politically. What made you change your beliefs? Was it an issue or issues or some change in your life or something else?
It wasn't a change in my life. It was a change in what the Democratic Party had become. I was liberal in that I was for civil rights. I was for women's rights. I'm for all that stuff now. But the feminist movement said a woman could be a firefighter, for instance, even if she couldn't lift a man and carry him out of a burning building, the way a male firefighter could. I said, that doesn't seem right to me. Then there were other things along those lines where there was extremes of the left. So the way I see it, Eric, is that I changed from the left to the right, mildly to the right. I want to make clear, because the left went too far left. I'm putting this, they left me, I didn't leave them, if I could put it that way.
Good answer. Good answer. And then, as people know, you were a Republican for a long time, Bernie, and you're an independent, correct?
Well, I was a Democrat also. I was a Democrat.
Right, before that, right.
I voted for Jimmy Carter, who was the last Democrat I voted for. Then I sort of dropped out altogether. I was in a transition period. And then I became a Republican, as you correctly said, John. And then a couple of years ago, I said, I can't take this anymore. The Republicans had become way too crazy for me. I was not in line with their thinking on too many things. So I wrote the local election board and became an unaffiliated voter. That's what I am today.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So the next question, this is not this person's real name. They use sort of a screen name, but it's Fair Dinkum Mate. I happen to know this fellow.
I never could understand that, by the way.
So I should mention he is from Australia. So he's one of our international subscribers. So the mate, that's at least that was the part that makes sense.
Is he writing from Australia, or is he just?
No, he's writing from Australia. Yeah, he's literally in Australia. Yeah. It's interesting because of that, Bernie. He sees our columns usually faster than anybody because they go out very early in the morning. But to him, it's sort of like in the prime time of the day. So, yeah.
Well, whatever your real name is, thank you. That's very kind of you being so far. I've been to Australia. I love it. Absolutely love it. And if things get too crazy here, I'll reach out to you, Fair Dinkum Mate, to find out some good housing in Sydney or someplace. But I appreciate your being there. So go ahead. What's the question?
Oh, sure thing. Yeah, his question is, who do you think will lead the GOP when Trump and his MAGA sycophants are finally in the rearview mirror? And will it be enough to win the next general election?
I don't think Trump and his MAGA supporters are going to be in the rearview mirror anytime soon. I know Trump, I think Trump knows this too, that he can't run again, and he will be out of power at the end of his term in January of 2029. But I think his presence, his toxic presence, isn't going away. So that doesn't mean a Republican won't win. But J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio are the two major contenders. All I could say is that I could bring myself to vote for one of them, but probably not the other.
Okay, okay, interesting. Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people are kind of in the commentary I've seen are acting like J.D. Vance is already sort of the foregone conclusion.
I don't. It's a long way off, but
yeah,
it's a long way between now and 2028.
I think that's true. I think all that talk is premature, and people may, you know, by the time we get around to 2028 or I guess 2027, when everybody's starts, you know, their campaigns, you know, it may be a different situation where, you know, MAGA and Trump world is so toxic that, you know, people, I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, we're a long ways off for sure.
Before we move on, let me thank our Australian mate again. I really appreciate your being out there. Tell your friends in Australia about us. But thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
Absolutely, you have fans down under, Bernie. So that's I don't think he's the only one either. I think we have a few. So the next question comes from our friend the Emperor. I know you've been excited, Bernie. You haven't gotten a question from him in a while. So
I've always wondered what land he's the emperor of. Excuse my ending a sentence with a preposition, Your Highness. But anyway, well, your emperor, what is your question?
His question is, it's a little long, which might surprise you, being from the Emperor. He's usually does.
These long questions put me to sleep. I can't take it. Cut it down.
For the Emperor, this is pretty good actually. It's a paragraph, but it's a small paragraph, so it's not bad. So the Emperor's question is, and it starts. He always likes to lay out a little story first. So he says, apparently Don Lemon joined a bunch of protesters to disrupt a Sunday church service at the city's church in Minneapolis because the pastor and congregation are pro-ICE. Odd how he and other pro-LGBTQ plus types didn't storm the local mosque in Florida after Omar Martin shot up the Pulse Gay nightclub. But then again, cowardly hypocrites aren't known for their consistency. Bernie, what are your thoughts, and do you believe that Lemon and other troublemakers should face legal consequences?
Apparently, Emperor, you rendered your verdict already. I don't know the particulars. If he was there as a journalist, as he claims, then he's clear. First Amendment and all that. If he was there as part of if he was there as one of the protesters inside a church, then he should be charged like the others. I hope the others are charged. Some of them, I think, already have been identified. But he's going to claim, and Your Highness, you know this, he's going to claim that he was a journalist covering a story. And if that's the case, he's clear. And I'm not sure the Department of Justice should go after him and possibly lose that case. If it's a close call, let it go, in my opinion.
All right. The next question comes from Rob O. He wrote this very early after we started asking for questions, so things have changed just a little bit about the situation he's referring to, but it's still, I think, relevant. Rob says, I'm all for de-escalation, but as Trump considers sending the National Guard into Minneapolis, it brings to mind President Kennedy sending the Guard into Alabama when local and state authorities refused to enforce federal civil rights law. Governor Wallace reversed his stance as a result. How is Minneapolis any different if local authorities refuse to cooperate and in some cases even impede ICE from enforcing federal immigration law? And is that a fair comparison? He's wondering.
Well, it's a seductive comparison. The reason it's different is because nothing is the same as race in America. The theory is the same. Alabama, in a sense, was a sanctuary state. And then Kennedy had to send in the National Guard. And Minnesota is a sanctuary state. But the difference is one was about civil rights for Black people, and this one isn't. And since nothing is the same as race, they're different in that regard. I do not think that the Trump administration should send troops in to Minneapolis. I think calmer heads should prevail. The city should back off. The state should back off, and DHS should back off. Just calm down. Both sides need to calm down, and I think they're ready to calm down because this is hurting Donald Trump. This is hurting the Republican Party. This is not a good look. 2 people killed. I know the jury is out. The investigation hasn't been completed, but I know what I've seen with my own 2 eyes. It doesn't look good on either shooting. So I don't think that Donald Trump should send in the National Guard, but I do think, as you apparently do, that we need to calm things down real quick.
Yeah, and I think it does look like things are calming down. It shouldn't be surprising, I don't think, but you see after we've had these 2 high-profile shootings just within a short amount of time in Minnesota, and in both cases, like high-profile members of the administration were out there saying this is a domestic terrorist. They were trying to kill these, ICE people, and I think after this last one, that those days might be over. It sounds like there's some people are being pulled back.
The only reason I didn't go down that road is because there wasn't a direct question about that. But I have thoughts on that. So if nobody's asked about it by the end, I'll share my thoughts on that.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll
move. Sounds good. We'll move to the next person here. So this is Steve R. He wrote, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal asking if Trump was losing the support of Joe Rogan, who has been critical of Trump's policies and actions lately. This brings to mind LBJ's famous quote regarding Vietnam. If I lost Cronkite, I've lost middle America. Is Joe Rogan the new Walter Cronkite?
That's a very interesting question. Here's how he's not. He's not in many ways.
Right.
Walter Cronkite covered World War II. Joe Rogan probably wasn't born during World War II. When Walter Cronkite was named the most trusted man in America, there wasn't a lot of television media or broadcast media or non-newspaper, non-print media. There was CBS with Cronkite, NBC with Huntley and Brinkley, and there was barely ABC. So when Walter Cronkite went to Vietnam and came back and said, this is not looking good, we're not winning this war, and I'm not sure precisely how he phrased it, but the implication was clear that this was a losing effort. Lyndon Johnson heard it and said what you quoted, that if I've lost Walter Cronkite, I've lost middle America. Joe Rogan doesn't have that kind of power. He just doesn't, because there are too many outlets now, or many outlets, as opposed to the 2 or 3 back then. So his voice is watered down. It's brought down by the bulk of voices that are out there. But Joe Rogan is an important person. He's got an important voice. The little I've seen of his program, he seems bright enough, and he's certainly important. I don't want to take that away from him, but Joe Rogan in 2025 or 2026 is not Walter Cronkite in the 1960s or 70s.
All right. We'll move on to the next question. This is from Sharon H. Bernie, will you elaborate on your opinion of this absolute necessity by Donald Trump to own Greenland? Is there more than meets the eye? Does he want to store nukes there? Does he have big military plans for there? What is it?
He's just been fixated on Greenland for decades. I mean, he's just got a thing. Once he gets a thing in his head, it's very hard to get him to change his mind. And by the way, I don't know who's out there that talks to him and tells him this is a bad idea, Mr. President. Now, Greenland, Donald Trump was right about Greenland's strategic and defense-related importance. That's not the question. The question is how we went about this crazy stuff, threatening military action, or at least not taking it off the table, saying, I want to buy it, we're going to get it and that's okay too. You can say you want to buy it, but when they say we're not selling it, you don't say they could do this the easy way or the hard way. That's what Vito Corleone said in The Godfather. We could do this the easy way or the hard way. I'll make them a deal they can't refuse. Well, the Danes and the Greenlanders have refused. So Donald Trump, whatever deal he wound up making, he could have made without all the BS that led up to it.
Absolutely. I've heard a lot of people say, and I think they're probably right, that his fascination with Greenland is that it's just really big. And he likes big, beautiful things. And that's been his mantra for a while. And I really do think it's as simple as that. I know this isn't a question.
Let me say two things about that. What you said is crazy. And that's why you may be right.
All right. So let's move to the next question here. This one is from Andy. He says, Bernie, if Barry Weiss or someone with similar ideology was in charge of CBS News at the end of your time there, would you still have left? Also, at any point during your time at CBS or Fox News, were you interested in hosting your own program?
On the first part, I might not have. I mean, I know from people inside CBS, there's a lot of angst. There's a lot, they don't like her. And that's because the second book I wrote was titled Arrogance. You know why? Because journalists are arrogant. And inside CBS, I know the people who were there. I don't know a lot of people who are there now, but it's the same culture. They don't like being told what to do by somebody coming in from the outside. I say give her a chance. If she was there when I was still there, yeah, I might have stayed on. I might not have gone in and quit, possible. As far as having my own show, I've never thought about that. Not at CBS, not at Fox, not at HBO. No, I just haven't thought about that. I cover stories. That's what I think I do well. And I think I'd be bad at a lot of the other things that you mentioned, like hosting or anchoring a show.
Didn't Bernie, though, weren't you offered a show at Fox News when you were there?
No.
Oh, I thought you wasn't the one that Howard Kurtz ended up doing. I thought it's.
I'm sorry. You're right.
Was that early on? Yeah.
That's right. Here's what happened. I called. I was on the phone with my agent, and he brought in a major player at Fox, and my agent said, "Tell so and so what you just told me." And I'm thinking, why am I on the phone with this person? I got snookered into this call. So I said, look, I think your media show is not that good, and here's another way to do it. I didn't mean for myself. Next thing I know, I get a call from indirectly to my agent from Roger Ailes offering me the show to host the media show. And I was doing HBO. That was a full-time job, and I didn't have any interest in it, and I just turned it down. By the way, that's the second job I turned down from Roger Ailes. In 1996, February 1996, I wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal about liberal bias in the news. That was a groundbreaking op-ed. I was still a correspondent at CBS News at the time. I don't think anybody who was a correspondent at a major news organization before me or since has written about bias in the news while they were still employed as a correspondent at a major news organization. I got a call from Roger Ailes, and he offered me a job. And he said, and this is a verbatim quote, "Come over to Fox," which was not on the air yet. This was February of 1996, and Fox went on the air in October of 1996. He said, "Come over and," quote, "I will make you the most important person in broadcasting." As I walked out the door, I said to my agent, "This is too crazy even for me. Turn it down." And I'm glad I did, because I think I would have failed. He would have put me on, as an anchor on a show, and I just don't do that. And I wouldn't have bought into the Fox theology. I would have said what I thought. Sometimes I would have agreed with the liberals and mostly not, but sometimes I would have. And I'm not sure that would have been acceptable. Under Ailes, it would have been more acceptable than under the current administration, though.
Interesting. Interesting. All right. Our next question comes from John M. He says, Bernie, what is your honest assessment of Trump's mental acuity? I'm seeing many similarities between his behavior and Joe Biden's behavior. Just a few examples: falling asleep during cabinet meetings, wandering, losing his train of thought in the middle of speeches, confusing Greenland with Iceland. Who do you think is really calling the shots at the White House?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think Biden was on the down. He was on the downhill, and it was noticeable to everybody, but his allies in the media and other Democrats who noticed it but wouldn't speak out about it. Donald Trump's mental situation is different. He's a sociopath. He's a narcissist to the extreme. He lacks empathy, and he's got a mental illness. He's insecure. He craves flattery. I read an interesting line. He'll even welcome flattery when he knows it's fake, because he knows the person who made it is so afraid of him that they'll even fake telling him that they love him. So I think they have two different kinds of mental acuity issues. And Biden's is understandable for a person his age. Trump is about the same age, a few years younger, but Trump is a sociopath, and that's the predominant take on him.
All right. We'll move on to our next question. This one is from Tim H. He says, what do you think, Bernie, of 350 million Americans at great expense funding the defense of 450 million Europeans, which are welfare states, and our own country is in debt? Do you think it's time for Europeans to support their own defense? I assume he's kind of talking partially about NATO here, but go ahead, Bernie.
The Europeans should pick up a bigger portion of the tab, but I don't like Donald Trump threatening our presence in NATO in order to get that. Does that make sense, Tim? It's one thing to say they should kick in more of their national budget into defense, but it's another to say we should threaten them with withdrawing from NATO if they don't do it, or we won't support them. More accurately, we won't support them if they don't. The president of the United States needs to also be a diplomat, and Donald Trump ratchets it up every chance he gets instead of ratcheting it down. That's a problem. Let me ask you, John, about Tim. Isn't he another person who doesn't live in the United States?
No, Tim lives here in the United. I think he might live in Minnesota, if I'm correct. But he's an American.
Oh, if he's in Minnesota, then I'm right. He's not in the United States.
He'll actually appreciate that joke, I believe.
For some reason, I thought he was in Costa Rica. Where did I get that?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like there is somebody down in Costa Rica actually that we have as a subscriber, but it's not Tim.
We have people in Latin America. We have people in Australia. We have somebody in India, don't we?
We do. We have a few in Europe as well. But yeah, the reason we know this is we have our Substack platform, and it shows sort of how many people we have in different regions of the world. It's kind of interesting. We should post it sometime just to kind of, people might find it interesting. But
I'm going to lunch next week in India, by the way.
India? Are you for Indian food?
No, I heard they have a New Delhi over there. So
very good, very good. So all right.
My apologies. I just
that's an extra bonus joke.
Third grade mentality.
No worries, no worries. So let's move to the next question. This one is from Samuel S. He says, if you were to update your book bias for the present media age we're in, what 3 major updates would you include?
Cable news, which is biased by intent. I mean, the networks were biased, but they didn't do it intentionally. Their bias was the result of groupthink. If you put a bunch of people who think alike in a newsroom, you're going to get a biased news product. So cable is certainly one thing. I would collaborate with the Renaissance Man of the Rockies on social media because John is an expert on that, and I don't follow that at all. So that's a second thing. And I might add more, certainly during this presidency, about how the president says things that are incorrect, chalks them up to fake news, and creates an unnecessary, the media doesn't like him to begin with, and that's on the media. But he gives them too much ammunition for them to take pot shots. You take pot shots at him about. So those are three things off the top of my head. I'd include cable, I'd include social media, and I'd include politicians, this particular president in particular.
All right. All right. Next question is from Scott K. He says, you have interviewed, covered, and worked with many celebrities, politicians, journalists throughout the years. How about sharing your thoughts on the best and most authentic people you have come across, and who would cause you to move if they were your next door neighbor?
That's good. That's a good one. Paul McCartney, I spent 4 days with him when I was at CBS News doing a 48 hours special. He's iconic. Everybody in the world knows who Paul McCartney is. And he's a down-to-earth guy. And I think the reason we got along, and we did get along very well, the reason we got along is because he's a blue-collar guy from Liverpool, and I'm a blue-collar guy from the Bronx, New York. And I didn't go in there starry-eyed because he was Paul McCartney, and I think he appreciated that. So that's one thing. There are probably more than one or two or three people who would fit the other category, which was really an interesting question. Who would I pick up and move if they moved next door to me? Maybe I'll come back to that before we sign off, because I don't know who would get the top honor on that one.
I feel like after that Mike Tyson interview, you might not want him as
I like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson has a rap that he's just a dope and all. He's not. I did an interview with him in Las Vegas at his house, and we walked by a small library that he had, and he said, and he reached for a book, and he said, "I was rereading this book the other day. It's by Nietzsche." And I said, "Is by who?" He said, "Nietzsche." I said, "The German philosopher Nietzsche?" He said, yeah, Nietzsche." And I'm thinking, Mike Tyson is reading Nietzsche, and I'm reading comic books. I mean, come on, Mike. I wouldn't move if Mike Tyson moved next door to me. I wouldn't offend him. I wouldn't play music too loud. That might annoy him.
Would you do your impersonation of him to him?
No.
Okay.
I would not do that. And if Mike is listening, I'm kidding, Mike. I'm kidding. But
all right.
Bring me back to that later on. I want to think about that.
All right, I'll try to remember that. So the next question, this one, Bernie, is from John D. We haven't heard from him in quite a while. He was always a pretty bright guy that would throw really smart questions your way. His question is,
I hate those smart questions. I hate them.
So here's his question. It's actually a multiple choice that you can choose from. So here it is. Which of these things was Bill O'Reilly's biggest professional failing? A, prematurely declaring an end to the war on Christmas, because that put Donald Trump in the position of having to then save the holiday for our country each and every year and make it okay, once again, for us to say Merry Christmas to each other, Bernie. B, not finding a way to monetize his famous "F it, we'll do it live" outburst on the set of Inside Edition many years ago. That went viral. I'm sure it made somebody a lot of money. Or C, giving us Jesse Waters.
What is C?
C is giving us Jesse Waters.
Giving up?
Giving the world Jesse Waters.
Giving us.
Yes, yes.
Okay. The biggest mistake Bill O'Reilly has made by the way, Bill O'Reilly is bigger than ever. I mean,
he's online, very, yes. Mm-hmm.
And he's on YouTube, and he's got, millions of subscribers. I mean, he's really huge. And you don't get to be that big unless you have a following and people believe and trust in what you're saying. But I will never forgive my friend Bill O'Reilly, never, for giving us that moron, Jesse Waters. No, Bill will never get out from under that one. That's the worst thing he's ever done. Well, the worst thing he's ever done. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. That's the worst thing he's ever done.
Gotcha. So that was a good answer. Yeah, Waters is the worst.
I shouldn't have called Jesse Waters a moron. He is, but I shouldn't. No, he is, but I shouldn't have said that.
I'll say it, Bernie. He is a moron. But a rich moron. He knows exactly what the Fox audience wants. He's a master at giving them exactly what they want. So yeah. So maybe in that respect, he's smarter.
Let's take a detour. Do you think that the people on Fox or CNN, for that matter, MSNBC is in a class all by itself. MS Now is all by. But do you think they say certain things because they're getting big paychecks and they want to keep those paychecks? Or do you think they believe them and then the audience latches onto them?
I think most people that are like Jesse Waters, we could bring up people from other networks. I think definitely with him, he's saying, I don't think he believes nearly anything he's saying. That's just my opinion. I've seen him say enough just completely idiotic things that, he's clearly just playing up to the crowd. I think Greg Gutfeld does a lot of that. There's a lot of people at Fox do. On MSNBC there are as well. But yeah, I think they know what they can say that'll be provocative and get people tuning back in every day. And I'm sure some of them believe some of what they're saying, but I think a lot of it is theater. I think a lot of it's professional wrestling. It's a storyline, it's characters, and I think that's what's going on.
I have said that I think cable news is one of the most divisive institutions in all of America, even though not a lot of people watch, but a lot of people who are interested in the news watch, and they divvy up into blue teams and red teams, and the blue team doesn't agree with anything the red team says, and the red team doesn't agree with anything the blue team says. And I think polarization is a much bigger problem than climate change or even the national debt. The national debt is a major problem because you can't sustain that. I don't know how we've sustained it for as long as we have. We've done it by having countries bail us out and buying our debt, our bonds. But polarization is really, really a cancer on our culture. And I don't think people are taking it as seriously as they should. Okay, enough of that. Go ahead.
All right. Next question is from Ben G. Excuse me. He says, several administration officials.
Ben G or Ben G?
Oh, Ben, and then his last name starts with G.
Okay.
So several administration officials, including Kristi Noem, Kash Patel, and Stephen Miller, outright lied about what happened with Alex Preddy in Minnesota. Then it says in parentheses, he's the fellow who was shot and killed by ICE agents on camera. So now some people, even including some on the right, are calling them out for those lies and saying there needs to be accountability for their lying because they are top administration officials. My question, however, is why would any of these people feel like they needed to tell the public the truth about anything when their boss, President Trump, lies all the time to the public and never pays any consequences for it?
Bingo. Check, please. I'm leaving. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The video shows a certain thing, and then the administration Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller say something so preposterous that you say, how could they say that? Well, they could say it because what Ben G said, that's what their boss does. Except now their boss is taking a lot of heat for what's happening in Minneapolis, and he's backing off. And I'm not sure what he's going to do with the people you mentioned, but I'll tell you what I would do. I would fire Kristi Noem. You can't say the things she said after the 2 shootings about domestic terrorists and all that. Stephen Miller, I'd fire because he's just a bad guy, I think. I mean, I don't mean a bad guy. I mean, I don't like his extreme positions on things. And I'd fire the 2 of them because of what they said about the shootings, which were lies, as Ben G says. They were just lies. Now, I know the investigation has only just begun, but we know what we saw in the videos. Come on. We know what we saw. And what we saw does not jibe with what Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller said. Kash Patel, I haven't followed that closely, but you know what? As far as I'm concerned, he can go too.
Yeah, this cabinet has is really something. So, all right. Next question is from Eileen W. As someone who's called out media bias on both sides for a while, what tips could you provide about how to wisely consume media?
Yeah, that's a question I receive a lot, and it's the most popular question I receive. There are places that I like, but I think, and I'll tell you what they are in a second, but I think the answer to your question is watch or read more than one source. I mean, I understand that people have jobs, they don't have all day to watch, a bunch of newscasts on TV or read a bunch of news. I understand that, but don't get your news from one place. It just, bias has just infected too much straight news. So you gotta spread out. You gotta have a diverse menu to choose from. Now I watch at 6 o'clock Eastern time, Bret Baier's special report on Fox. I think it's a pretty honest newscast. So if I only watched that, I think I'd be okay. Because I really think that if you don't think I'm right, I'd like to hear about it, John.
Oh no, Bret's definitely better than a lot of people at Fox.
Yeah,
sure.
I think they're fair, but still, don't watch Fox. I know people, and John knows people who watch Fox all day long. There are people who watch CNN or MSNBC all day. Don't do it. Don't do it. If you change the channels, as I do, you know what you notice? It's as if there are 2 Americas. Fox is reporting one America, downplaying or ignoring the other one. Not their hard news people. Their hard news people are good, but I'm talking about all the shows from morning to night, except for the 6 o'clock show with Bret Baier. They're all opinion shows, all of them. Every single one of them is an opinion show. If you watch that, you're going to have a certain take on the world and the domestic culture and politics. If you watch CNN, you're going to have a different view. Go back and forth, and then make up your own mind.
I'll just add something since you brought Bret Baier up. One thing I think is interesting is that, so I used to watch his show all the time, and my favorite part was the last 15 minutes of it, where you had the commentary, you had the panel. Charles Krauthammer was a regular. You had Steve Hayes, you had people like A.B. Stott, a really good panel, like every night. And that's like my least favorite part about it these days in this era, because you have people like, Molly Hemingway and just these hacks. And it wasn't like that before. And I really miss that how it used to be.
Yeah, let me say something about that. I have no desire to go back into daily news. I want to be very clear about that. But if I were advising somebody, I'd say, you know who you bring on all your shows. On all your shows, don't bring on people who are predictable. Don't bring on people who are going to spout Democratic positions because they're Democrats, or Democratic strategist, whatever the hell that means, on this title under their name. And don't bring on people who are going to give you conservative views predictably. Bring on experts. Bring on experts who don't have a political axe to grind. I would watch that show daily. I mean, and that's there's some of that on TV, but not a lot, not nearly enough. I mean, CNN annoys the hell out of me for many reasons, but they have a show on at 10 o'clock Eastern time with Abby Phillips, bright woman. And the beginning is people aren't talking to each other, but we're talking to each other here on this show. No, you're talking at each other. That's right. I have not heard one liberal on that show say to the lone conservative, you know, you make a good point. And I haven't heard the conservatives say about anything a liberal has said, I agree with you on that. So what you have is the right saying what it's predictably is going to say, defending anything Donald Trump does. And you have the left criticizing everything he does, no matter what. I don't watch it anymore. It's predictable. It's not talking. We're not getting anywhere. But if you had 4 or 5 bright people who don't have an axe to grind, and you throw out good questions, you'd have an interesting. You'd say, well, that's interesting. And I'll tell you who does that show. Michael Smerconish on CNN. I hope he hears this, or we can get what I'm saying to him about this. Michael Smerconish, and to some extent, Chris Cuomo on News Nation, have different views from experts, not from people who are partisans who are going to tell you what the partisan position is. Smerconish and Cuomo, the 2 people on TV worth watching.
Interesting. All right. So next question is from Matt B. And we only have a few more, Bernie. Bernie, even with all of the political division and destroying of behavioral norms we are experiencing and have experienced in this country for recent years, I, as generally an optimist, believe the country will get past this and recover. The fabric underneath this country's feet is stronger and more resilient than we sometimes fear. What is your take?
My take is the same as yours. We survived 2 world wars, a Great Depression. We survived 9/11. We survived an economic collapse in the 2000s. We will survive this. I have no doubt that we'll make it through Donald Trump's presidency. I don't agree with a lot of what he says, but the left saying that this is the end of America, they're just, no, we will survive this.
Good to hear. Next one is from Ben H. I suspect we may have already answered this, but maybe not. What was the most uncomfortable interview you had as a journalist?
I don't get to be uncomfortable during interviews. I make the other person that I'm interviewing uncomfortable.
Excellent.
That was a good answer.
Wasn't there one? Did you interview Jerry Lee Lewis and he was very awkward or something?
Let me tell you what I just scribbled down. John and I did not discuss anything. I just scribbled down Jerry Lee Lewis.
Oh, did you? I remember you telling me the story was.
That was going to be my answer to the who would I move if somebody moved, if he moved next to me. I wouldn't move if Jerry Lee Lewis moved next to me, but I wouldn't go over there and say, "Hey, Jerry, let's hang out." I'll tell you why. CBS News asked me to do a profile of Jerry Lee Lewis. I jumped at the opportunity. Jerry Lee Lewis, he's a giant in rock and roll. And there was so many things to talk to him about. The IRS took his car collection away. They took all his money away. The famous stories about when he married his 14-year-old cousin. I mean, it was great. And CBS News had spent, I remember the number, $60,000 before I showed up, following him around, getting what they call B-roll, meaning pictures of him doing things. 60,000 was a lot more in those days than it is today, but it's a lot of money, 60,000. He showed up in the interview, I think about an hour or so late. The interview was in his own house. In his own house, he showed up late to the interview. He was in another room. He showed up. I asked him a question. I said, "What do you think when the IRS knocked on your door and took all your cars away?" He said, "That was all right. I think." He said, "Okay." I went, "Okay." "What did you think when the IRS came in and wiped out your bankroll because of it?" "No, that didn't bother me. It was okay." I said, "Would you excuse me, Jerry? Would you excuse me just a minute?" He said, "Yeah, sure." I went into the other room with the producer and I said, "I'm out of here." And I left. $60,000 down the drain. I said, "No." And I think Jerry's not with us anymore, so I think I can say this. I think he was flat because of some drug he was taking to flatten him out. You know, I don't know what he was taking. I'm not saying he was doing it to get high. It was the opposite. I think he was doing it to get off of whatever he had been on. And it was a terrible interview. And the producer said, "Why didn't you ask him about his son? He really loves his son." I said, "Bye-bye." What's the closest airport? Which was Memphis. We were in Mississippi. I said, "I'm going to Memphis. See you around." And we all went together to the airport.
All right. Well, that sounds pretty awkward. That sounds like that would fit into that question there. Our last question is from Nancy S. She says, "How deeply does the lack of courage and spine by our elected officials and their willingness to sell their souls affect you?"
Oh, it doesn't affect me at all. Well, let me rephrase that. It affects me momentarily. I have a burst of anger over it, but it doesn't affect my daily life. I think they're pathetic. Their profiles in courage are hard to come by, and that's understandable because it takes a lot to be courageous in a bad situation. But profiles in cowardice are a dime a dozen. And Nancy S. is obviously talking about people who won't stand up for what they clearly know is right and speak out against what they clearly know is wrong because they're cowards. They're sycophants and they're cowards. Does it bother me? It bothers me because I hate that kind of cowardice. I mean, if you're not a coward, if somebody takes out a gun and you start running away, that's not cowardice. That makes sense. But this kind of cowardice annoys the hell out of me briefly. And then I say to Nancy S., who I know very well, if it's the same Nancy S. that I've
It is.
my wife, I say, "Let's get out of here. Let's go out to dinner or something."
There you go. There you go. Well,
So let's go. Can you help me out with who I might not want to live next door? I interviewed Richie Incognito, an offensive lineman. Do you know who that is?
I do. I watched that video not that long ago when I was looking up something. Well, he was the guy who wasn't he talking about like wanting to cut off somebody's head or something?
Yeah, I called Richie Incognito, who was an offensive lineman. I said he gave new meaning to the word offensive lineman. And he was a little nuts during his heyday, a little nuts. I went into a funeral parlor. A relative was there, I think maybe his father, and he went nuts in the funeral parlor. They had to call the police. Now, Richie Incognito may be a very nice guy, but if he's on something that makes him as uncontrollable as he was during part of his career, during part of his football life, and it was because of drugs, by the way. He says it was because of marijuana. I said, "Richie, come on." He said, "No, I got violent because of marijuana." I said, "Okay, fine. I wouldn't be comfortable living next door to Richie Incognito."
I do not blame you on that one. That would be a rough. Well, that was the last question. But I think Bernie, you said it before we close out. You wanted to go back to. Well, I guess you can add to this if you want. Maybe you've already answered it as much as you're going to. But the thing about Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller.
I just think they're really bad people. I think Kristi Noem could be a very good head of the Department of Homeland Security if she had a boss who said, just do the right thing. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about the politics of anything. Just do the right. But they're all serving their master. Stephen Miller is Donald Trump's alter ego. Half the cabinet or more can't begin a sentence without saying, I'd like to thank Donald Trump for the wonderful job he's been doing. It's embarrassing. It's pathetic. And Kristi Noem is that way. And as I say, half the cabinet is like that. These are people who were very successful in their lives before they met Donald Trump. Yet they act like sycophants, and it's really, really embarrassing. And I don't know how they deal with them. I mean, how do they deal with themselves when they look in the proverbial mirror? I mean, it's just,
it's just the price of power and ambition, I guess, in this political era. If to be put in a position like that, you gotta nurture one man's ego. So they're doing it.
I mean, I understand how you have to be a team player. The president's the captain of the team, but sometimes if the president says, "Rob Ryan," here's a perfect example, and I think this was the lowest point of the Trump presidency. Rob Reiner is stabbed to death, and his wife is stabbed to death, and Donald Trump puts out a social media post saying that he was killed because he had Trump derangement syndrome. I mean, do I have that right, John?
Pretty much, basically saying some people are saying that he died because he always does the little wordplay there. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So something like that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a member of the cabinet, you'd have every right to say, I can't be part of this anymore. The man is nuts. The man is crazy. He hates. He even said this in one speech. He said, "I don't wish my opponents well. I wish them. I want bad things to happen to them." Do you remember that speech?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Charlie
he said similar things. Yeah.
He said Charlie Kirk wished well on his opponents. I don't wish well on my opponents.
Right.
I mean, that gives you an excuse to say, Mr. President, this is not for me. Do what you want. You're the president. I'm out. I know I wouldn't last. I'm flattering myself to think that he would ask me to be part of it. He did call me once and ask for my advice, but I couldn't be part of something like that. I don't know if I'm better than the people I'm criticizing, but I know that I'm different.
I think your personal character and integrity matters much more to you than it does to the people you're talking about.
I had a comfortable gig at Fox.
Yeah.
And I criticized Donald Trump a little too often, and they said they didn't say anything. They just disappeared me, But that's fine. They have a right to do that. But I wasn't going to just say, I know what I have to do to keep this job. I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah, and a lot of people chose differently, and they're huge stars now, and that's how it is. I think you can't put a price on integrity, and you definitely have it, Bernie. If you didn't, I wouldn't be associated with you. You're kind of a role model for me. You have been for a few number of years now. So
that's very kind. That's very kind of you, John. I appreciate that. Did you read that off of the piece of paper I sent you and told you to say that?
Yeah, I got the email this morning, so yeah, I was reading that. So.
I'm kidding.
A lot of people have asked that. How did I end up being part of this?
Let me tell you. The website was brand new, and my son had started the technical part of it. And I said, I'm getting these posts under my columns from a guy. I don't care if he agrees with me or not. He happens to agree with me a lot of times, but he writes well and he thinks well. Do we know how to find these people? That's how ignorant I was of how this works. And he said, yeah, I could find this. His name is John Daly, as you could see on the post. And you want to send him a note? I said, yeah. I sent you a post. I said, would you write a column for my website? And the rest, as they say, John, is history.
That's right. I started off in the comment section. So Emperor, this is you. Who knows? If you keep writing, you may too one day be part of BernardGoldberg.com. The columns. Bernie's like, okay.
Already is a big part of BernardGoldberg.com.
That's true.
I just want to know what the hell country the emperor is the emperor of. But I mean, is it like New Jersey? Is it New Jersey? I mean, what is it?
I don't remember offhand. So I will say I'm not going to divulge it here. I do know that the emperor's identity, but I am sworn to secrecy. I think if I were to,
I don't want to know. I don't want to know. But is he?
I won't tell anybody. I don't know if he's an emperor. He could have things done to me, Bernie, and I don't want that to happen.
That's exactly right.
All right. Well, Bernie, that was our last question from Nancy S. So I thought this went really well. I think this was a very interesting episode. I hope people enjoy this 100th episode. If you do enjoy it, if you enjoy the website, please tell your friends about it. If you're a free subscriber, please think about upgrading to being a paid subscriber. You get a lot more for that extra amount. And anything else you'd like to say, Bernie, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I mentioned that I didn't know any of the questions in advance, which is absolutely true. And I didn't even know the question from Nancy S., who lives with me for 40 years. You know, we just celebrated a couple of days ago our 40th wedding anniversary.
Oh, happy anniversary!
And she didn't tell me the question.
Let's see, there you go. She's a professional. She has a journalist background as well, Bernie. So she's a professional.
I wonder what else she's not telling me. All right. Thank you, John. You did a great job. You always do a great job, and I appreciate your presence all the time.
Thank you, likewise as well. And to everybody else, thanks again, and have a great day.